Hey, how are you doing today, buddy?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Well rested for once, which is kind of
Yeah.
like taking advantage of lockdown. Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice, isn't it? For those of you that are not used to being like in the lockdown. For me, I've been
Mm,
working from home for over a year, so I'm kind of like this is fucked now because I was working from home with a bit of freedom. Now I'm working from home with
yeah.
no freedom. So
Yeah,
I'm
it's
basically
kind of
stuck in the
like,
house all day.
yeah, and motivation for training in the house is low.
Yeah, I was just saying to you before, like I've got a concept, like a row on the balcony and like kettlebells,
Mm,
dumbbells, but like honestly, I go out there, pick it up, and my body's like, nah, nah,
nah,
not today, not
can
not this
relate.
week, not next week. Like we've been in
When I
lockdown
get out
6
of
weeks, and
lockdown, I'll do
honestly,
it.
I've trained
Uh,
like I think I'm training like average 3 times a week, which compared to normally like like I'm doing like 7 CrossFit sessions a week normally, and now my
yeah,
body's just like, nah, not into it.
so good. Like to be able to slow down though, I think it's pretty beneficial at this point. I was definitely like
Yeah.
overtraining, and then I've got an injury, and I'm like, okay, I can appreciate that I need to slow down. So yeah.
Yeah, I think for a lot of people, like a lot of people who are working like outside, like this
Mm,
is a really pleasant, as long as you're still able to work and you've not got that financial stress or that job security stress, like for those who are privileged to have kept their job, this is a
mm.
really great time because it's like, oh, I'm not going to burn out. Like I'm getting this time for myself. I can start slower in the morning. And I think kind of like what you're saying, it's been a really great opportunity for those people.
Yeah, for sure. Finally do the stuff that they couldn't do before. Well, didn't prioritize before. Now
Yeah.
they have to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess we'll jump into it. Hey, obviously I reached out to you to jump on here with me because I'm interested in what like the other side of the scale on this. I guess not other side of the scale, but the women's perspective on mental health and societal pressure and all that.
Yeah.
Obviously I've been pretty vocal about what I have gone through. But yeah, like understanding it from women's point of view is something I'm interested in. Just like 9 people a day in Australia kill themselves, right? And 2 of those are women. Obviously, 7's a much bigger number than 2, and we focus on men's mental health, but there's still 2 women every day dying from suicide, and that's like those 2 lives need to be able to be stopped. I guess like
Yeah.
losing those lives rather.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so like I guess if you want to jump in and just like introduce yourself, if anyone doesn't know you, and tell them what you do.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah, we'll go from there.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. Really excited that I get to be here and have this conversation because it is a really important conversation. Um, so, for those that don't know me, I'm Bobby. I am a female empowerment and life coach. Um, Kind of similar background, I think, in terms of I came through the system. I've been coaching for 10 years. I look younger, but I'm 30. Baby face. And I started off, physically being a PT and nutrition coaching and like getting everyone to change their body image because as women we believe that like skinnier the better and that'll make us happier. And I came
Yeah,
out of uni and just jumped straight into that. I think you call it like an EP here. My degree is like an EP originally. Um, and my kind of own personal journey was I was a little troubled child. I was the one that was smoking and drinking and having sex at 14 and taking drugs and like you name it, I was being like the bad child. And
yeah,
of course, we don't really understand what's going on internally at that time, right? We haven't necessarily processed our trauma or processed what has been happening to us throughout our childhood. And for me, that's just my personal story.
yeah,
Um, and then when I got to about 24, so about 6 years ago, I was starting to recognize, that I was training and I was deep in the CrossFit world and I was overtraining and I was obsessed with my body image and I was taking cocaine every weekend and lying to everyone about it. And I just had a lot of pain and anger inside me. I was a
yeah.
real bad person. Like I did some fucking shitty things.
Not a
And
bad
hmm?
things. Not a bad person, just did shitty things.
No, not a bad person. No, I just did shitty things. And as I kind of hit that like 20, 24, 25, I started to like start working on myself. And I got my first ever life coach. And she opened my eyes up into personal development. Like, truly, it was like my first kind of insight. And at the time, I was just coming out of, I was self-harming, kind of, I think I just finished around 21, 22. I struggled with self-harm a lot. I'd struggled with drug and alcohol abuse pretty much from the age of like 15, 16. It became a problem. But I was lying to everyone about it, pretending to everyone that this wasn't happening. And which is what we all do, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, and then obviously being in the industry of like health and fitness and being portrayed as this like fit, healthy athlete, I was competing at CrossFit. I had successful business. I was living in Hong Kong. But internally, I had so much pain and anger because I was processing some abuse that I went through in my early childhood that I was like terrified to share with the world, let alone even share with myself at that point. Like, it was like I had suppressed and oppressed these memories and these thoughts and these feelings. And when I started working on myself and I realized, holy shit balls, like all this bad behavior was me manifesting this deep pain and trauma that I'd had. And I saw it in so many of my clients. Like, I saw the same behavior and these same patterns. And I was like, whoa, like if I'm only just processing this and like I'm dealing with this, like, and these people, like, they have no idea. And I can see this in my friends and the people that I'm hanging around with. And I was like, holy shit, something, like, I've got to do something here.
Yeah.
And so,
it's a contradiction, right? Like, you're telling them not to do the shit that you're doing. Like,
yeah. And then I just started on my journey then. So in kind of 2016, 2017, I started like being honest with myself, getting myself full-time life coach, full-time therapy. And then I realized that, you know what, I don't want to be a PT. I don't want to change people's external. I want to heal people's internal. And that's kind of how I got here today. I started my company 4 years ago. And we've kind of developed. And this is kind of, this is how I've got here. I moved from Hong Kong because that place is very toxic for mental health, and set myself up in Sydney with CrossFit Play, and that's kind of how we kind of met, I think, through that like CrossFit world. And so now I help women who really struggle with their body image and self-loathing, and who have kind of reached that point in their life where they are maybe 25 to 35-year-old adults who are presenting as functional to the world but still really struggling dysfunctionally internal.
yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of how I got here.
Yeah, cool. Obviously, that's like a very quick recap of your journey to where we are now. I think one of the things, well, not one of the things, the main reason I reached out to you was like, obviously I see what you do with women. I didn't actually know you had male clients, to be honest, which is awesome. But I've got a lot of women in my life who, like, whether they're friends, family, past relationships, whatever it might have been, that have, like, now that I can see those things, I can, like, I've seen in them hiding stuff, like hiding their feelings, or like postpartum depression, all that sort of stuff. And it's like, it's fucking alarming because of where I was. I know how, like, alone you feel and how dark that place is. And I guess, like I've been pretty open about, I know nothing about how women feel. So, like, in that regard, so having your perspective personally and as a professional, I just saw it as an invaluable opportunity to share that with people. So, especially men too. I think men, like, obviously my page has a lot of male followers because of me, like, talking about my life and like how they can relate to it. But I think it's important for men to understand it too, because, like, we've all got women in our lives, whether it's like it is family, friends, partner, whatever it might be. I think we just need to do a better job of understanding each other.
Yeah, I think it's that kind of famous quote, which is, it's not like what's wrong with that person, it's like what happened to them. Right? Because we quite often see someone's behavior and we're so quick to judge like that behavior, but actually our behavior is always a projection of what's going on internally.
Yeah.
always. So our patterns, our conflict style, the way that we process emotions, the way that we connect intimately with our partners, the way that we process our love languages, the way that we express ourselves, like no matter what that is or where that comes across, it's whatever happened to that child and that individual and on their journey, like that's what they're projecting out into the world as an adult. And I think it's really important for us to start going, okay, if there's these women or men in my life that are behaving in a way that, and this is just assuming we can even see it, right? Like quite often we don't see it, but if we can see this behavior, it's not stopping and judging. It's, I wonder what happened to them, and I wonder how I can support them and allow them to feel safe.
Yeah. One of the lines that sticks with me, and it's something I tell people to use a lot. Like I'm not a professional, and I can only speak from my own experience. So, but when people like say, "Oh, I don't know how to talk to someone who's struggling," the line that my therapist told me, like, that will help the most break through that is, "How can I support you with this?" Not what do we need to do to fix this or change this. It's how can I support you right now?
Yeah, I was going to say it's exactly the words. It's how can I support you? Because we have a tendency to, when we see someone struggling, we want to fix it, right? That's our innate feelings. But actually, we can't fix anything. Like that's the actual truth. Even like a therapist, even me as a mental health professional, I tell my clients all the time, I can't fix you. You can absolutely, you have the power to fix yourself, but you just need to feel safe enough to be able to sit with whatever it is that's causing you to feel this fear and this unsafety. And quite often people who are struggling with mental health, it's driven from fear. Like it's always something inside of them isn't aligning. There's this like attachment to something that they don't have, or an aversion to something that is their truth. And it's driven from fear. And all we need to do as a mental health professional is provide a completely safe, non-judgmental, supportive space for that person to explore it themselves. Because we call it in the coaching industry, we call it the lamppost theory, which is basically if you have a client come to you and you were a lamppost and they got to vent everything, they'd be like, great, good session, how do I pay?
Yeah.
Like someone just wants to feel safe and feel heard, and that is it.
Yeah. It's, like being heard and being seen is like the biggest, not fix again, but like a way to make someone immediately, right?
I think one of the most valuable skills, like if I was going to say there's one skill that, we can all start to learn, is how can you validate someone's feelings and thoughts without having to agree with them, right?
Yeah.
Like if we can all learn to do this, holy shit, it'd be a different ballgame. Like if you're sharing your truth with me and I completely disagree, I think that you've got the situation wrong, I think that you're projecting it, I think that what you're saying is, from my point of view, like not true. And quite often we jump to say, that's not how it is, that's not quite right, you're reading it wrong. We don't want to invalidate anyone's thoughts or feelings or emotions. And so our skill should be, how do I validate how you're feeling for you, whilst also being comfortable that I don't agree with it, but that's okay. I just want you to really feel validated, like from your point of view and from your perspective and what you're processing chemically in your brain, like that is actually your truth, and I'm going to hold that for you.
I think that's probably something that people are scared of too, though. Like they don't speak because they don't think people will understand, right?
Yeah, and I mean that's probably because, like, if I shared with you, hey buddy, like I honestly think that, the way that you're speaking to me is making me feel this and this and this and this. And because of your personal attachment to your identity and your understanding, like you're gonna immediately invalidate me and be like, that's not true. Like you're seeing it the wrong way, right? You're gonna completely invalidate my truth. And because this happens over and over and over again in our society, and especially, we'll talk about this later, but with the ease of social media, like we're right if we be vulnerable, but then we're attention seeking if we cry, and it's like fucking hell, like we can't like it's too much if we're, oh, I'm really struggling today, fucking attention seeker, you know. It's like, how do we just allow individuals to have what they're experiencing and realize that like it is real for that person. It is, regardless if you truly can see, and every other person on the planet can see that that's not the like objective truth. If it's a subjective truth for them, then fuck, we need to validate that for them.
For sure. Yeah. It's funny, like I've done a few podcasts in the last week, and I've had these conversations with males, and it's like we're getting to the same place, but you're in so much more depth. Obviously, it's what you do for a living too, and the conversations I have with just like regular people. So it's like, it's funny hearing the same things just worded intellectually, I guess. Like,
well, not intellectually, like, just it's like,
no, like I'm not saying the three of us were idiots. I'm like, just yeah.
You know what it is, though? This is so true. Like, women, we've been doing therapy with each other since like 2000 years ago. Like, we, you know, when our periods come, we're in a red tent, like soothing each other, and like the mothers are looking after all the other one else's babies, and we're talking about how we're feeling. We go out for coffee. We're like, we have therapy ingrained in us from being a female. And it's so normal. Like, even if we don't have professional help, like we still have a place to vent. It might not be our truth, but we have a place to vent, right?
To let that energy out,
and I from what I understand, and I'm sure you can talk about this more, like men don't necessarily have that, or I think from what I see, they have to work really hard for that with like a few select individuals.
Yeah, definitely. That's more to the truth. But also, like, we generally aren't trained to be comfortable doing that. It's like, shut up. Yeah. What you're feeling is not, like, you're weak if you talk about it. So, like, obviously that's the mission to change that. And it is happening, just very slowly. And it's good to see women rallying around men as well to do it. Not like...
Yeah, I got a bit like, I don't know if you remember last year, I'm going to be really careful when I talk about this, when the Black Lives Matter movement came out, and then there was also the hashtag Me Too movement, or no, hashtag Not All Men, that was it. It was the hashtag Not All Men movement. And I spoke pretty strongly. Like, I showed up online with some pretty strong opinions on the side of like hashtag Not All Men. Like, I'm all for feminism, but like a healthy unionship, whether you are men, woman, you identify, your gender, your sexuality, it doesn't fucking matter. At our core, like, I'm at my core a feminine energy. I also have masculine energy, and we need men and women in terms of our energy, like the masculine and the feminine, to be on the same team. And if I'm there saying you're not fucking good enough to all the men in my life, like, how the fuck do we expect them to grow? Sorry, I'm not swear. It's fine. Feel comfortable and feel vulnerable. And I think a massive part of that was like, I was angry because like women are still not comfortable saying I'm struggling. And if we can't do that, if we can't talk about our struggles and trauma and pain and body issues, like, how the fuck do I expect my boyfriend to do it? Like, I can't even do it.
Yeah,
you know, and I'm like, oh, my ex-boyfriend was a prick. My ex-boyfriend, like, what? Hang on a minute. Like, we should be empowering men as women and being like, hey, I know you're still not getting it right, but like, let me show you how. Let me support you. Instead of like, it's not my responsibility. You need to learn for yourself. So, like, I totally get that. Like, it's not our responsibility as women, but I'm going to choose to be part of the solution and not stand and be part of the problem. Yeah, and I feel really strongly that, like, as women, we can do more for men. We really can do more.
Spot on. Yeah, okay.
Mumble love, spot on, yeah.
Yeah, I was reading that out, sorry. Let's jump back to women quickly. What's it like obviously you'd see like a multitude of different things, right? Like, but what would you say the most common few things are that make women feel like they're boxed in?
I would say the number one, and obviously it's so deep. It's so deep. I'm gonna say the term body image journey,
Mm-hmm.
and what that represents is that represents the journey of a female being born into this kind of patriarchal society where our entire worth has been based on how we look and our physical appearance, and how the entire society profits off our insecurities and our lack of self-worth, like profits massively. And from such a young age, that is instilled in us. And it's not just about how you look, it's how that impacts every relationship you have from the age of 4 years old up until being an adult, and how that creates these different identities that we play to pretend to the world that we're more confident than we are, or like the deep insecurities around the way that we look and the way that we feel and how we're not matching up to what is supposed to be the norm, and how we completely abandon who we truly are because like that's not accepted. Like we completely abandon the parts of us that are our true personality by the ages of 12. Like women have just completely abandoned who they really want to be because it's like, oh, I need to chase this other variation. And that obviously leads into other avenues. But by the time women get, 20, 30 years old, most of the women I work for me with are like, who am I? Who have I been playing? Like, why am I such a people pleaser? Why do I have depression? Why am I so insecure? Why am I so terrified to share my truth? Why am I so like, it's like they've been playing autopilot for so many years. And then when people like me kind of come along who've been through that journey, and I'm like, yeah, I don't give a fuck what anyone else thinks of me. It's because it wasn't easy. Like it takes a long time. And it's like, there's actually this beautiful power inside of you that allows you to be your truth and be who you are. And you don't need to be anything other than who you are to the world outside of you. But that takes a lot of internal healing.
Yeah.
You said at 53, just separated and having always been praised for my looks. I can tell you what Bobby is talking about is now my biggest challenge. Yes. Right? Like, and it's like it's
behavior almost.
It's trained. Well, when we use the word patriarchy, like we're not man-hating, we're just truly talking about this society that we live in, which completely devalues women and their worth, except for their physical appearance and the fact that they can raise children. That's it. Like that's been ingrained in us for years. And even the internet, how long is the internet? 30 years, 25 years. Like that has just perpetuated this problem to the point where women are contributing to it now. They're so ingrained in the system that you've got 19, 20-year-old girls who are going and getting Botox and changing their body image, and they're like, no, I'm choosing this. I'm empowered. Like on paper, women are more empowered than ever. We're on fucking billboards, we're getting paid equally. Like, but here's the question. Like, where does your metric of self-worth come from as a woman? Does your metric of self-worth still lie in the hands of others? Because if it does, trust me, you're still fucking disempowered. You just think that you're empowered because you're able to do all this shit. But like, the shit that you're doing was given to you on a platter by the patriarchy and said, hey, if you do this, we'll allow you to feel more empowered, we'll give you more stuff, right? Because our metric of self-worth should come from entirely within us. Like, no one else can make me feel anything that I can't give to myself. And like, I do not say that lightly. It has taken me 30 years to get to that point. Like, it is a very hard journey. But most women absolutely do not think that. And then on paper, you'd see these women, social media, like killing it, models, like, CEOs. Like, I've had some really intense clients who on paper you're like, fucking hell, like these are killing it. Inside, horrendously low self-esteem, a lot of pain, a lot of anger, a lot of resentment through the fact that they've chased this ladder to get this thing, and then when you get there, doesn't feel good, doesn't feel nice. It's not actually what they wanted, right? It's because their metric of self-worth was in the hands of everyone else around them, be it financial, be it physical, be it being a mum, be it being a girlfriend, being a wife, whatever it is, whatever role they're playing, that's where they're seeking their validation. And when we realize that, what if that was all taken away and you're left with this like really empty, like fragile sense of self? Like, whoa, that's terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I mean, it's jumping back to men now. I like everything you just said about like playing into that role is exactly the same thing that was my undoing in my own mental health. Like, I thought I had to be this successful guy, right? Like, I had my dream job running an incredible venue in Adelaide. I was married, young kid, 2 brand new cars, like living, I've never had so much materialistically. And I was like, fuck, I'm so fucking lonely and I feel like mentally poor. Like, and
Yeah.
that was the spiral of my undoing. So
Do
it's
you
funny how
think,
they're similar.
do you think, so if we take, this is an interesting question. If we take like the physical objects that you had and the life and the kids and the wife and the cars and the house, do you think if you'd had a better support network and be able to work through your mental health from the beginning, like you could still have created that life and have all that tangible material stuff and still be happy? Or do you think it's not possible to chase that and have
I
the,
think it's definitely possible. In my situation, it's probably a little bit different because I had really supportive people around me, but I didn't understand my value and my worth to myself. So anything that I was feeling, I hid from them because I was like, oh, it's going to be too much for them, or they're not going to care, or they're not going to know how to handle it. And then eventually, like when you suppress it so much, you've convinced yourself that you don't matter now.
yeah.
So like, I didn't give them the opportunity to support me, which is so unfair.
Yeah, that's really tough. And of course,
Mm.
like you said, because you're playing that role, it feels so real for you. So like you wake
Yeah.
up and it's like there's this puppet strings from like the brain, and they're dictating how you feel, how you act, how you show up, how you speak, your emotions, your values. And it's like, at what point do we go, hey, who is controlling the puppet strings? Like, who is
Yeah.
actually up there? And if you're not given that opportunity, yeah. And it's scary, it's terrifying. It's really
Mm.
terrifying because until something happens, quite often we just feel like we're helpless. We feel like we don't have control. We feel like this is the only option that we have.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, obviously that spiraled for me. But yeah, no, that detoured a little bit. Sorry. I just heard something you said, and I was like, even though I'm the opposite sex, I can absolutely grab the concept from what you were saying.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, men and women are different in terms of our gender and our masculine, feminine energy, but I really actually don't like that book, Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus. Like, we can have these conversations and we completely resonate with what we're saying and how we're
Yeah.
expressing our emotions and how we're feeling. It's just, for women, it's a lot safer to have these thoughts and these questions and these conversations. For men, it's like, oh, like this doesn't, like at a central nervous system, like a physiological level, like it's not safe. Like something in them was like, this is wrong. This is wrong. I shouldn't be having these conversations. I shouldn't be talking about this.
Yeah, I guess it's like, it is really inspiring to see so many men and like women affording them that space as well. But like so many men now have been through so many things and they're actually like actively fighting against that. They're like, no,
Yeah.
I might feel unsafe, but it's going to make someone else feel safe if I speak. So do you know what I mean? Like it's so nice to see, like, obviously I've got my own story and I was like, fuck it, I'm just going to start talking because that's how I'm going to heal as well. So like, while I am making it more comfortable for other people, it's actually helping me as well. But like, when you do that, all these people that you had no idea even existed just enter your world and you're like, holy shit, there's like thousands, like millions of people doing the same thing. We can break this. Like, it can change.
Yeah. And I think it's a complicated one, because I always use the term like the ripple effect. So like me and you right now, We are pebbles, and all of the followers, people that are watching this and interacting, they are the ripples. Like we've created this energy between us today, and it's rippling out, and these people are receiving. Like, even if someone takes one thing away from this, fantastic. And our goal is that everyone watching and listening, like, they become the pebble. They then throw their pebble. Like, how many ripples can we create until it's like a tsunami, you know?
Yeah.
And like, more we feel comfortable like showing up online and talking about this and normalizing, like, it is scary, it is uncomfortable, this is happening, the more other men can step forward, and women step forward and have these conversations, even if it's not on camera, like, you know, behind closed doors with their friends, with their girlfriends.
Yeah. I don't think everyone should do it on camera, to be honest. Like, you can't just like decide today. Well, you could if you're pretty bold and you're comfortable to be able to heal from it. But like, you can't just wake up and go, you know what, I'm going to tell everyone in the world that I'm depressed and I've been thinking about suicide. Like, it might not have progressed to that point, but like, you need to do so much before you get to that point, because you're creating a space now for other people to feel comfortable. And if you don't know what the fuck you're feeling, how the hell are you going to help anyone?
Yeah.
Like, you're just telling people you're scared, essentially.
Yeah.
And that's good. Like, it's a good start, but yeah, I think you need to dig deep first as well.
Yeah, absolutely. There's got to be like a sense of knowing that you're sharing, like, for you, like, this is part of your healing journey, and so this is really important. But, you know, unless you've got to that point where you recognize, okay, I need to heal, I need to be better for whatever reason, for yourself, for your family, just jumping up online isn't really going to be, well,
it's not the most productive way for you to heal. So like, you should be thinking about yourself first, rather than just going, I'm going to help 1 million people today. Like, it's not that simple. You need to work yourself first.
Yeah, absolutely. Clean your own backyard before you clean others.
Bingo.
That one's for free, that one.
It's staying there. That's really good. So on the topic of women body image, right? So a few weeks ago, maybe it was only a week ago, anyway, I put a video up saying that we were doing this chat, and I was really interested in women's mental health and like, what's the main thing they struggle with. I had 20 people DM me, and 17 of those said body image because of social media.
Yes.
So I was like letting you go with what you were going to say is the most common thing, and then I was like, yeah, it just, like, it's not a shock. I think that's probably what I was expecting, but I didn't think 17 out of 20 would be that.
I mean, I have to play devil's advocate a little bit and say the social media part, like, something that is often overlooked is we have to take responsibility as the consumer. Okay, and I think that's something that is highly overlooked. Like, we are aware that what we're consuming isn't good for us sometimes, or what we're consuming is not helping us, and yet we can choose to continue to be in that because it serves us in like some way, shape, or form. And I think we do need to, a little back to basics. We'll answer that in a minute, Andy. Great question. We need to be aware that it is our responsibility as the consumer to choose what we're consuming. And that might be as little as like me just saying now on this call, hey, like, have you noticed that like you're feeling a little bit more shitty around what you consume? Have you noticed yourself scrolling aimlessly, watching like six packs and like girls at the beach? And actually, like, if so, like, go and unfollow a ton of people. Like, you can do that at any point, and it really is your responsibility. So that's the first thing I just want to clear up. And like, sometimes it just takes a little reminder, like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm going to go and do that. Like, unfollow a heap of shit. And then second, it's a fucking problem. And I think the problem existed before social media, but social media has perpetuated it because it's so easy and accessible, and because it's like international, like anywhere in the world, any person can show up and filter and change and like warp this identity. And like the problem, I said again, is the women showing up doing that, like they are part of the problem and they think they're part of the solution, because they're like, I'm more empowered than ever. I'm allowed to, you know, hashtag free the nipple. I'm going to pose here in my thong because women can do that now. Cool. You can, but like you're still getting your metric of self-worth through the validation of others. And like you're actually part of the fucking problem and you don't even realize it.
Yeah.
And like women hate to hear that, because they're like, no, I'm empowered. Like I can parade around in my underwear. And it's like, the thing is, like, no one knows. No one knows if you're actually healing or actually empowered. Like, I wouldn't know. You wouldn't know. Only you know. And not for us to judge, but the majority of the time, it's done through like, I am seeking this. Like, I need this. Like, this is the only way for me to feel good. And like, I committed, I think January this year, I committed to like never using filters again, which is a really like scary step to just go like, fuck, I am like fully never gonna, I think it was February, I was like, I'm never gonna use a filter again. Like I made a full, like I did a video about it. And
you
that
went back
was,
on it, yeah.
pardon?
Did you go back on that recently?
So about 2 weeks ago, I was really vulnerable and I showed up online and I was like, look, I'm really struggling with my skin and like, you know, my lockdown weight, and like I really want to put a filter on. And I spoke about it openly, and then I was like, and I think I wrote out in one of my emails, and I was like, fuck. But I didn't go back in it. I did like one that day, and then I was like, no, like I'm absolutely, but like that pull, that's the point, right? It was so strong. I was like, oh, and what it does is it tricks me. Like I become the victim because I see myself with this filter and I'm like, oh, I love her. Look at me. And then when I see the real me, I'm like, oh, I don't like the real me. And rather than learning how to love the real me, I'm going to distract myself and put a filter on. And that's so dangerous. It's so dangerous because we're learning to love not ourselves. We're learning to love a version of ourselves. And oh, thank you, my love. Someone's like, you don't need filters, you're gorgeous. No.
Keep going.
But that's the problem. Like for someone like me who, you know, like you're saying, oh, you look gorgeous, you're great. Like I still have insecurities. I still was tempted the other day because I had pimples and I had my cellulite out. Like I wanted to use a filter. What does that say about like someone who's really working hard on this? Like other women don't have a fucking chance. Like they truly feel, and the most common word females reach out to me and they share is their self-loathing. They say, I wake up in the morning and I go to the mirror and the first thing that their brain processes is like self-loathing. And that is such a sad place. It's so true. It's so real. Like I have been there. And it's such a sad place to be because we truly feel like there's no way out. We feel that the only way to change is to change the body, change our reflection. But the truth is, this feeling that we want, this feeling of like self-love, that's all we do. We do everything in life to be happy. Like everything, every conversation is to give us some sort of positive reinforcement, happiness. It's just it's a feeling. It's an emotion. It's something that like we can just take at any moment of the day. You can just choose. I feel love.
Yeah.
And it's not that easy. Like it's not that easy because of neuroplasticity in the way that the neurons fire in our brain, and we've got this like default programming, which is like wake up, self-loathing, perpetuate it, wake up, self-loathing, watch social media. Yeah, I definitely am self-loathing. Look at me compared to them. Like, ugh, not tell anyone about it. Wear fake tan, put all these filters on, change my body. I might feel self-love. No, I'm more self-loathing, change more. Like, oh, and then I'm saying, actually, what if I handed you a pill or a magic wand that you didn't change your body ever, but you actually felt you could have the feeling of like being in love with what you saw? Would you choose it? And women are like terrified. They're like, no, I would hate to love what I see. I would hate to love my true self. What?
Yeah.
Like that.
Sorry, I'm just responding to something that was written.
Oh, we're back now. A little back to basics. Therapist or life coach? How do you choose, or both? Okay. Do you want me to answer that now?
Yeah, let's go for it.
So generally, the difference between coaching and therapy is, and this obviously there's many forms of therapy, but we'll stick to like traditional psychotherapy model here, like CBT. That's what most people would look at if they went and saw like a psychologist. Therapy works on the present to the past, so looking at why you are the way you are today, and all of the actions, all of the events, your attachment style, all of your childhood trauma, your childhood emotional neglect, CEN, like how that has led and impacted you to be the version of yourself that you are today. And it helps you have like a really clear understanding of that, which can assist in forgiveness and healing and processing blocked emotions and trauma. Coaching is generally from the present to the future, generally speaking. So we look at, okay, this is what we're presented with. We've already done the hard work, and we do go back a little bit. We use like theta healing and timeline healing, and then we look at now, and then we create real concrete structure, goals, and we give you skills and tools that you can use immediately to like start changing the way that you are. So you've got to this point, you understand why. Now you want to change it. How do I change it? Cool. Come and see a coach. I'm going to help you change it.
Yeah. Cool.
The other thing I'll say is coaching is really, well, first of all, you have to be really careful what country and where you are and where you choose your coach, because coaching is unregulated technically, which means even if you're qualified and even if you go and get a certification, like even 3-year life coaching certification, you could have made that certification. Like you have to be really careful who you choose, make sure they've got insurance, like go and like do your research. Secondly is when you work with a coach, or hang on, I don't rephrase this. Something that I share with my clients is something called the transformation theory. I actually made this up, so that I literally made this up myself, but it's going to try and help you explain what I'm talking about. So in order for the client, because we want a client-centered approach to get the transformation, to get the healing, whatever it is that they want to achieve, maybe it's process childhood trauma, maybe it's process their attachment style, maybe it's remove people pleasing, maybe it's to gain more confidence, maybe it's to deal with their depression, like whatever it is, as long as they're not suffering from acute mental health in which you need to see a psychologist or psychiatrist because they're presenting as dysfunctional. As long as you've passed that point, the primary goal is that the client gets the transformation, right? And there's 4 pillars that must be, I believe this is what's missing in the mental health space right now. I believe that the practitioner is so set on their own way and telling the client that this is how I'm going to heal you because like I'm a psychiatrist, or I'm a psychologist, or I'm a CBT therapist, or I'm a Reiki healer, or I'm whatever the fuck it is. There's no smoke without fire. They all work if it's the right approach for the client. Yeah. And in order for that transformation to happen, I believe that you have to hit all 4. And I think what's happening right now is these different practitioners are choosing only 1 or 2 of the pillars. And the pillars are the masculine pillar, which is conceptual understanding and knowledge. So like actually empowering your client with knowledge about like whatever it is. Like I'm going to educate you on how your attachment style was formed. I'm going to educate you on how your trauma has manifested into physical illness. I'm going to educate you on why the way that your parents didn't emotionally support you has manifested. Like once you obviously have got that background. So the conceptual knowledge.
Yeah.
And then the second pillar is the feminine, which is the embodiment work, which is allowing someone to feel a difference. Like telling them this is what you need to do and giving them these tools and skills and saying, go away and do it. I'll see you in 2 weeks. How do you know that that client has actually shifted from a state of like trauma response, which is like, you could have shut the fridge the wrong way and they're having a triggered trauma response. Like to them, their body feels like they're going to die because that might be something related to their childhood trauma. How do you get someone to actually experience that shift energetically? That's the second pillar. It's embodiment work. It's breath work, meditation, sound healing, movement, trauma therapy, where we're like moving the body and letting energy shift through it. It's having someone hold a safe space, guided theta healing, hypnotherapy. Like that's the embodiment work. You have to have both. You cannot have one or the other. The other 2 pillars are accessibility, which is just like, what does the individual need? Like, do they have financial restrictions? geographical restrictions? What's their learning style? Do they prefer audio? Do they prefer Zoom? Do they prefer face-to-face? Are they awkward in company? Like, do they feel uncomfortable being with you? Like, you need to think about what the client actually feels safe in terms of the way that they can access this type of treatment.
Yeah.
And then the fourth one is just unconditional love, which means no matter what the client presents, like, even if you can think of the most, painful, darkest shadow parts of yourself, like, there has to be unconditional love and acceptance. And your opinion as a practitioner is absolutely fucking irrelevant.
Yeah.
And I think right now the gap that we see in mental health is we have clinical psych on one end, we have Reiki healers on the other, and then in between you've got like, coaching and counseling, and then like psychotherapy and like CBD therapy and EDMR, like, and the problem is everyone's saying like, well, I'm right and you're wrong, and it's like, hang on a fucking minute, we're all right. Like, I've seen people who have, like, I had my cancer healed from Reiki, like, sweet, like, totally happy with that. Like, if that's what worked for you, incredible. And I've got other people who have been on medication for 20 years and, they've been in the mental health industry for like, I say industry because I think it is, for a long time. And it's like, it all works. It's just, we need to be more client-centered and be understanding of other practitioners and how, like, it's the client's focus. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, to me, yeah.
Thanks for the question, Andy. I hope that kind of helped a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. That was a good one. To that topic, when I was on my journey to find a psychologist, I actually didn't find one that I connected with and trusted with my best interest at heart until the sixth person. So, like, I honestly, the first one I walked into was like, oh, okay, I'm a burden for being here. You are not interested. There was no eye contact. I was like, what the fuck is going on? If this is it, I don't want to do I don't want help if this is what it is.
Well, this is the problem. This is the problem. One, psychologists have been at med school, or psychiatrists have been at med school for fucking 4 years. They're being paid per session. Like, they want to get as many sessions in per day. Once you're a psychiatrist, like a doctor, like, they don't fucking care about like your emotions. Like, they come in, let me medicate you so that you're tick off, I've healed you, and like, I can get this payment for the prescription, like, in and out. Not always, but like, in 10 years of being in this industry, I have had probably 50 women come to me who have been in that, and myself, I've had, I'm sure there are some great, but generally it's like, come in, let me put a band-aid on you with this. And that is just to be complete transparency here. Acute mental health is very different to functional mental health. So if you are presenting as like severe depression, severe anxiety to the point where you're having panic attacks and there's physiological chemical imbalances in the brain, medication is incredible for bringing you back to that equilibrium to allow you to start the healing process. Absolutely. However, the problem is once you're in that system and you're on meth for the rest of your fucking life, which I have lots of people who are, and like, it's very difficult to get from that back down the other end through the spectrum of mental health, right? And then the other issue is to heal, to truly heal. So whether we're processing trauma or physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, unmet needs, trauma doesn't have to be the big T. It can be not receiving the love and validation you expected from your parents when you were a child. Like, we need to be really clear here. Trauma is not big T's. In order to heal that, you must be given a completely safe space for those blocked emotions to rise to the surface and sit with them completely welcomed. Like, that's how we heal. We allow those parts of you that you'd rather die than share with anyone, those thoughts that you're so ashamed of, we allow them to come to the surface and be fully seen and be part of you. We don't shame them. Like, that is part of you, and we love that part of you. And in order for that to happen, you've got to have a relationship with that person. And so the biggest concern I see is a lot of women come to me having been in therapy for years and they've never made progress. Like, don't get me wrong, they feel good in there, they talk about it, but there's not that embodiment, that energetically shift of this is actually safe. And it's because it's not their fault. Like if you're a psychologist, like, and you've got 20 patients to see that day, like how the fuck are you going to create that safe, beautiful place? Which is where this beautiful introduction of like a postgraduate psychotherapy degree now, which is really accessible. You could study, you know, anything. You can study like a Bachelor of Science, and then you do a postgraduate master's in psychotherapy, and you're technically a psychologist. Like it's a very easy route to go down now. And that idea of psychotherapy, which is the model that I work on, which is you create the relationship between you and your clients, and you allow that safe space for all this trauma and emotions that are blocked to come to the surface, and you let them heal it themselves. Right? You let them process it. You're just there to shift their perspective and ask questions. And it's just the space. That's all it is that helps them heal. It's not like you're not asking them and feeding them all these questions. It's just having that space for these oppressed and repressed and painful, traumatic emotions to come to the surface. That's the healing. And then once that's out and they feel safe, that's when the coaching comes in and we go, cool, so now we've processed this, we accept this is fully part of you, we love every part of your past and your history. Now let's give you some tools. That's fucking, like, are you ready to change? Yeah, let's change. Cool, let's do it. And that's kind of how the process, like the relationship can go. So yeah, I completely understand that, you know, the first psychologist that you saw was probably not ideal. I know it's a real common problem at the moment, and I think it's a much bigger conversation for how we combat the first point of call for mental health, because personally, I think this sort of stuff is much more helpful when we are talking about accessibility.
Yeah, for sure. All the conversations I have are this, not include like this, obviously just now, but like I've done 3 podcasts and like a few of these live chats. And every time I do it, I always make sure that I bring up that point that it took going to the 6th person. I know 6 is like the other end of the scale, like not settling for that first one if you don't feel like they've got you and they trust, like you can trust them with your life, because essentially that's what it is, right? You're putting your life in their hands, and if they're not engaged and giving you that safe space, why the fuck would you go there?
And the thing is, it's not even their problem. Like at an individual level, yes, they can show up better for you in their job, but like they've got fucking KPIs and they've got fucking targets to hit, and they've got to like claim from the insurance. Like the problem is so much bigger. Like Wesley said, the ability to get into uncomfortable with an hour-long session takes such relationship building. Okay, so I'll respond to that is like, you can only meet someone where you've been yourself. Yeah. Okay. And as a psychologist who's just come out of uni for 4 years and does 20 patients a day, and like, yes, you know the theory, you understand like way more than like I would as a life coach in terms of like the acute side. Absolutely. I'm talking about, can you hold space? Like, do you actually know what it means to hold space? Like, could you be a psychologist and say 3 words for the entire hour-long session with your patient? I don't think so, because they want to like get in and fix the problem for you and tell you and like, hey, do these things, let me show you. Like, holding space like is a skill. And like I have so many amazing coaches that I'm friends with and work with, and like, and myself, like I'll have clients come to me, you know, I've never met them before, severe sexual abuse, emotional abuse, trauma, and within 10 minutes we've created this beautiful safe environment for this person to sit and work through. And like, that is a skill that I don't think is in the traditional mental health model. And I think if you can't meet someone where you've been, and I don't mean you have to have experienced that trauma, but you have to have had someone hold space for you like that.
One of my good friends is a psychotherapist, and she's unreal at holding space, but she doesn't commit to more than like 3 or 4 sessions a day, because she knows how like much it drains her, because she's obviously had that space held for her, and she knows how much energy it actually takes.
Yeah, that's like, I literally, I won't do more than 4 clients a day, ever. Like, it is exhausting. Yeah, exhausting.
Yeah. That was a good one. That was all from Andy's question, wasn't it?
Yeah, I loved that chat. Is there any more questions we've missed? I'm not sure. Love that. So you'll put this on your grid?
Yeah, I will.
Yeah.
I will.
Love this. Maybe you could download it and send me a copy as well or something. That would be
Yeah,
great.
for sure. Absolutely.
Well, if you don't have any more questions, I'm going to say thanks. Thanks for your
Yeah.
time. I'm happy to stay on, but like, I just want you to know that I really appreciate this. And
No, yeah, absolutely.
anyone that's
Likewise,
watching,
obviously.
if you want to reach out to me, like drop me a DM. It's all welcome. Drop me a DM. Just ask me a question. Yeah, come and find out more about what I do. If you're a man and you want to find out more about what I do, please just drop me a DM. If you're a woman and you want to find out more about what I do, please drop me a DM. Would love to talk to you and support you.
Yeah. Well, thanks for your time, Bobby. I really appreciate it, and I've taken away a lot there as well. So it's good to have another chat with you. And what's that? Sorry. Mental systems flawed. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
If not handled correctly, absolutely.
And yeah, let's just be really clear, like your friend who's an incredible psychotherapist, like there are some incredible people in the system. There really are. But I will say they're all the younger generation. They're all like, I have yet to find like a 60-year-old therapist who's like able to be that. And maybe not, I don't want to blanket statement here, but it's a lot of the younger generation, our sort of age, millennials, who are coming through, who are being part of the problem themselves, and they're recognizing, wow, the demand for mental health is different now. Like the way that people want to be held and supported is different.
Yeah. Well, she's 35, so
Yeah.
not in that older demographic.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that was really good. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Thank you
Andy,
so much.
thanks guys. Got a lot out of that. Yeah, amazing. Thank you. Yeah, cool.
Thanks, guys.
See ya.
Do I just
Thanks,
exit?
Bobby.
Yeah, just exit. Leave.